Wow. Happy New Year. I was just watching the sun come up, and I was like, it'd be really nice to share a couple thoughts and words with you about the new year on the Gregorian calendar, at least. I think that the true new year happens in the spring equinox. That's just me. Yeah, wow, another cycle has passed, another year has passed. I was reflecting with my journal here about my last year, and just what has transpired. And I'm sure it's been a lot for you as well. And, a year has there's so much in just one year, you know what I mean? The birth of this YouTube channel and the growth of the online yoga academy and the purchase of my home here in Costa Rica, the construction of this earth temple and fire temple. But I feel like sharing today about the new year is related to kind of I suppose how do we implement new changes into our life, and we recognize that there are some things that we want to change, that we want to grow out of or expand beyond, like how to implement the change. I'm just reflecting for myself, and as I was journaling, I was just noticing there are some patterns and behaviors and thoughts, even stories that I have that don't really bring joy. They don't bring happiness. They don't bring good energy. Instead, they actually really bring the opposite. They bring me into a kind of a lower vibration space, these thoughts, these beliefs, these stories, these patterns. And identifying that is the first step, to identify, oh my gosh, there's actually stories that I'm telling myself about myself or about others or about the world, and I'm making meaning out of those things, and the meaning that I am assigning to those experiences is leading to more experiences that don't feel good. I'm just continuing to perpetuate and create narratives that actually don't really serve anybody. So identifying that, right? And moving into the new year, being really mindful of, okay, what do I want to take with me into 2026, and what should I leave behind? What belongs to the past and can stay in the past? And am I able to, that first step, notice and observe, what stories, what beliefs, what things are happening in my mind and the meaning that I'm making about them, and is that good, right? Is that something that I want to keep? Or are there stories, narratives, things like that are not, right? That are not bringing joy, abundance, health, peace, right? This goes in any relationship, any experience, anywhere, right? Just identify, how am I assigning meaning to this thing or these things, these people, this place, this experience. And then being really clear and going to that second step of being how am I going to actively work to uproot those patterns, those beliefs, to just take them out at the root, like you're weeding the garden of the mind, so that I can notice in myself when those stories come alive, and then therefore influence my mood or my attitude about something. And again, tracking how the story ends up basically influencing my whole reality, and then the reality that I create and therefore respond to is one that has been influenced by these stories, these narratives. So I'm just walking through the steps of that process. And first step, identify if there's a story that's influencing us in a way that's not necessarily positive? And then second step, how am I going to pay attention to that and be vigilant enough so that when those stories come up, or when that experience happens and I notice myself assigning meaning to it, can I interrupt that pattern? Right? Am I able to pause and breathe and feel a new outcome? Right? This takes skill. This takes like serious skill, and this is why we practice. This is really the purpose of all the sadhana, is to develop our energy so that it's sharp enough and clear enough that we have sensitivity and adaptability in those moments to basically create new outcomes. Because that's what we're talking about. This is like, we're literally creating a new outcome, right? Like a new neural pathway has to form, and those neurons have to fire to create, to link that circuit, to activate that circuit, that neurological circuit, right? The circuit in the brain and the nervous system, that then will create a different outcome in life, a different response, because I've created a different meaning, or I've interrupted my default way of creating meaning that's not necessarily helping me, and I've replaced it with a new program, basically. I've created an alternative program. And hopefully that alternative program is one that's more desirable. And ultimately, I think that this is how transformation happens. Like if we look at the fundamental aspect of transformation, it's kind of like I'm describing that here with each of these steps, right? So then taking the old program, replacing it with something new, requires us to notice the old program, step one, like I was saying, interrupt it when it's about to run, step two, and what would step three be? I guess have an idea of what it is what's the new outcome, what's the desirable outcome? How am I positioning myself and creating a meaning that is in some way superior, right? Like it's important to think about, what is a superior way? If this way isn't good, right? Or it's not good anymore, or it's not good enough, or whatever, is there a better way to feel? Is there a better way to think? Is there a better way to assign meaning? Is there a better meaning to assign? These are good questions. These are inquiries of like, oh, okay. If that's not working, then what does work? Or what works better? Like just to compare and to understand, like, wow, there may be a superior way to do this. Like there may be a superior way to think. There may be a superior way to live. And that's, of course, subjective to each of us. We have to be the ones who discover that, of what really is a better way, for myself. Like, if I'm responsible in some way, at least co-responsible, in the creation of any suffering or misery that I experience in my life, right? On some level, I'm partially responsible. Some people might argue that we are solely responsible for that. I'm not going to exert my opinion one way or another. Some people would argue that, as I was saying, solely responsible for our suffering and misery in this life. Some people would say that we're not responsible. Pick and choose. I think that on some level, we have a responsibility to how we feel, right? Of course. That makes sense. So if I don't feel good, then what should I do? Like if I'm not experiencing joy and happiness and abundance and health and good things, then what do I do with my mind? What do I do with my energy? How do I align myself in my life? How do I think? Right? What stories do I tell myself? What meaning do I assign to the experiences I have that will bring a more beautiful reality, like just a more harmonious, more aligned, just more beautiful, like more beauty and peace and satisfaction. Like that's, I think, that's the question for 2026. So that's pretty much all I got. Yeah, I think that's good enough. The channel's gonna just keep sharing videos about yoga, so if you enjoy this and you want to subscribe to follow along, receive teachings, practices, guidance, that's what this channel's for. So let's keep growing. Like, let's make this year a really, really epic year. Let's get super strong. Let's train our mind, let's just train our minds so that we can choose the beautiful reality, right? Like, that's what's on the table. So yeah, let's do that. I'm gonna go for now, and I'm gonna train my mind. Happy New Year, everybody. Peace.